Yep, we're here. So, quantitative text reviews detection in 17th century Spanish drama. I'll just start saying 2 words about the project, then I move on to the clarification of the term text reviews, and then briefly I introduce some projects and methods around text reviews in the humanities, and how did I apply the more or less out of the box tools and libraries, basically Tracer. We'll see that in terms of the selection of features for a corpus of theater plays. In the output, I'll show and discuss some of the preliminary results. So about the project, the 17th and also the 18th, the Spanish theater is an important field of research in Spanish literature studies. Is the so-called, Maciej said that, is the so-called golden age period, because of its textual actually and social impact until today. There's still much to do with the corpus in terms of critical editing, because also of the implication of the writers' networks, and also because of the authorship attribution. And parallel passages, that's actually what we're talking about today. That's let's say for now, similar text of chunks of text shared by plays are still very important for critical editing. So this is a prospecting project where I'm trying to get familiar to understand this, some quantitative methods to help me out to retrieve this kind of information. So, and this is, I mean, this will be one of the main goals at the end. So it's to extract, to point out the actual chunk of text in order to share it with a community of critical editors. So today I will show you what I managed to do so far with corpus. So the text reuse, or the reuse of text, consists of a significant repetition of a text. This is a broad definition, since reuse goes beyond the mere repetition. But the social-cultural context of the 17th century Spanish theater helped and promoted actually this practice. Authors made use of already written or performed plays, constructing a mixed intertextual practice based on reusing different texts. So within the theater studies in Spain, there are several taxonomies, classifications for it with different implications. So we are talking about recasting, reworking, as you see the adaptation, reuse. Also, we're talking about inter and intratextuality, self-plagiarism, version, transmodalization. Transmodalization, for example, is like adapting a novel into a theater play, for example. Jeanette talked about that before. So, so how to put these terms into numbers when most literary concepts are, as Moretti said, emphatically not designed to be quantified. So as a working basic, I just merged 2 definitions. The qualitative one, so this is the text reuse consists, this is a translation, consists of the use of a scene or textual passage in different plays, but we could also include in this category songs, verse, other types of literary text incorporated into a comedy for other purposes than the ones they originally had. So I merged this one with a more quantitative one, and that is text reuse concern the recycling of a complex textual information which contains a statistically significant number of words in common between a source document and a target document. So this quantitative approach, you know that already, for the identification of textual units is a part of the information retrieval systems. Many of the techniques of NLP, tokenization, lemmatization, and so on, word embeddings are part of this field. And the goal is, for example, the elimination of redundancy in research. We know that to identify plagiarism, citation in journalism, to analyze republication or the news transmission, for example, and in the literature and the history, the reuse, the allusion, the paraphrase, and so on. So, so I decided to start at the beginning. I decided to start looking at how projects or methods, I'll say 2 words about that later, related more directly with literary studies, humanities in general, approach the subject. So one of them, the first one you see there, the viral text project, maps the networks of reprinting content in 19th century newspapers. Also impressive, the second one is a project of historical journalism. And this it's a corpus of digitized newspapers enhanced with digital tools. One of them is the possibilities to search for text reviews. Both use PASM. This is software developed by David Smith within the viral text project. And those two first projects are more like an all-in-one product because, I mean, they have in mind the end user. Of course, and this is, of course, just a selection. You find also research done for English poetry. This is the paper from Shank and Underwood on where they analyze Yeats' poetry, for example, and they use for that TF-IDF. The Perseus library uses also. I mean, I've seen that there's a couple of maybe one paper about using TF-IDF for the Perseus library, classical text. So as part of actually the political controversy, as you see there by Cafiero and Camps, is related with authorship attribution. It's about this political controversy around the movement QAnon is called that there, and it's difficult to pronounce it and to know how to pronounce it. Anyways, and they use for that, they used to clean the text in order to do authorship attribution, a packaging R called text reuse R. And the last one, this last piece of software I'm listing here, this tracer, is it uses as a workbench the Bible, which actually seems appropriate because of the parallel passages in there. So I said methods, of course, but properly speaking, only TF-IDF is actually a method. The rest is software. There's a set of algorithms using different methods involving from hashing to similarity algorithms, calculation of distance, and so on and so forth. So I've tried so far the last three. Remember, this is just a proof of concept and ongoing project. And but today I'm mostly referring my experience with Tracer on this theater corpus. About the corpus, I managed to put together a corpus of around 640 plays, around 30 authors, from which I selected a subcorpus with the so-called collaborative plays. But from one specific author called Moreto. What is the reason of this subcorpus? The reason is that collaborative dramas, two or more authors writing a play, could represent a good workbench, as the subject matter of a jointly written play is rarely original. And it is normally a recasting, it's a reworking of all plays. So they adapt them to new audiences and or new context, for example, to the court. And while the implications, of course, are much deeper, one can imagine that it can be easier to produce a collaborative work if one has a model to follow. So the subcorpus has collaborative plays and possible previous models for them. I was not sure of showing this because I did not really elaborate the approach, but it was the first attempt, okay? So I selected a small set of plays with non-reuses and then applied TF-IDF to it. Which evaluates, as you know, how relevant the word is to a document in a collection of documents. So, and it's done without removing punctuation and function words. So what you see here is endpoint antivirus, and behind that you see these 6 pairs of plays. That's it's like 12 in total. So that in pairs that share different sizes of literal or near literal. reuses. They mark here with the same color, okay? So the clustering works well with pairs that, for example, share a significant chunk. For example, the whole act, or that the two versions of the same work, or clearly a recasting of plays. So the clustering fails, though, when the plays share only, for example, a single stanza. So when the reuse is small. Again, adding, for example, function words change the results, although not for the bigger chunks. So that it is what I've actually done with TF-IDF. Of course, I'm still, and always still, I need to elaborate that approach, but I'm still thinking about that. I just want to get the actual chunks of text in order to be able to work with them. And of course, you can introduce the method in a workflow, and but I haven't done that yet. So, but this is just the first approach about this method. So, Tracer, this set of algorithms or software, which is actually, I don't know yet. I don't know if it's still in development. I don't think so. Jan says that so. But the processing steps you see there, so the simplified processing steps for tracing are, you need first a corpus in a specific tabular format. That's actually just the first tokenization you have to do, because you have to choose between. I mean, you have to decide what you want. If you want the verse, paragraph, chapters, or whatever. And the second tokenization is that you decide what kind of n-grams you use bigrams, 3 grams, so on. And the third one is just this broad parameter feature selection. I'll say more about that now. And at last, there's some data processing, the alignment of the different parallel texts. So data input must look like this for the whole corpus, and as to be, I mean, you need to prepare that in advance because Tracer doesn't do that. I just prepare a small script in order to prepare the corpus in that way. And what you see now with this corpus is like it's more like 1 million of units of reuse, and that. For Tracer, this is not a problem. I just tried also the package in R, and packaging R can cope with that, but Tracer can without a problem. And these units of comparisons are verses, and what you see here, the ID is just the first 2 or 3 numbers at the play, and the last numbers of the ID are the line verses. So. What is the parameter selection for Tracer? For Tracer, it uses the so-called, they call it like that, feature-based linking technique. So it does not compare everything with everything, but only checks common elements in the reuse unit, and they call that feature-based linking. I mean, the terminology they use for that is sometimes a little bit specific. The units in turn are segmented, are tokenizing features. And in the featuring, we have to decide whether the elements are words or bigrams, and this is actually the second tokenization, because first I just decide to use verses, and then afterwards I have to decide if I use bigrams, trigrams, and so on and so forth. And now from here follows a list of decisions, for example, whether to eliminate function words or not. I mean, you know that they have a high frequency, so therefore they don't appear. I mean, they appear a lot, so you have to decide that, or they eliminate features that appear rarely or only once. And because it doesn't make sense to put them in the comparison, for example. Or for this also the linking, you can check if you want the text reuse checked within the play or just between plays. So this is internal linking or external linking. And I think that the important one, the most important one here is this called scoring. So you can determine what is the percentage of common elements for the unit to be qualified as reuse. So that is the scoring. If you set the scoring to 70% or to 50, whatever you want to, this is going to be qualified as reuse. Below that, it's not gonna take it as a reuse. Of course, depending. What I'm saying here, 70% is depending what you have chosen. You have chosen diagrams, trigrams, words, and so on and so forth. So I first tried with two plays that they share the whole act. We see that before, of course. I mean, I know that, we know that they share the whole act. I didn't use diacritics, I didn't use function words, and I used diagrams, and the scoring was 50%. Yeah. I mean, why this and not others? I just anticipate that I didn't perform a proper validation. Okay, so bear with me. And I know this is actually one of the tasks of my on my to-do list, to perform a proper validation. But for now, this is what I tried, and of course, as you see, as expected, TF-IDF was able to identify two here also. But what's actually important here, you see the score is, for example, when is. And this is interesting. What is this is 0.5. The text reuse is not verbatim. It's not actually exact. So it allows you to find verbatim or near verbatim text reuses. Now playing around with the score in here. So as I said before, TF-IDF couldn't get this text reuse with just in the stanza. But I tried again here with Tracer, this time again with no diacritics, but I just left the function words, diagrams again, I'm scoring 0.5, and yeah, was able to find it. Not everything in the stanza, because what is actually just, I think I remember well, just one verse was below the scoring, so it couldn't get it. Even though the verse was like with 3 words, one verse and the other one with 4, but the scoring was behind that, so it couldn't count as a reuse. So so I would like to point out that that is a problem in a large scale. So because if you reduce the score in order to get more reuses, not only the computation is going to be larger, but also the amount of extracted text is going to be larger. And this is a problem. And I believe this is a problem, and I would like to discuss that later. So what you see here is a graph that represents the entire subcorpus, which includes the collaborative plays. I use here diagrams, leaving the function words with the score, this time with the score of now 0.6, and I removed the diacritics and the punctuation. So the ages here represent the total score between plays. And just in a minimal description of the graph, you see the high density of the links, meaning that there is actually a lot of reuse in there. And the highly weighted edges that they stick out, they represent plays with a high percentage of reuse. So there are more interesting things knowing the corpus in here. For example, the green nodes represent Calderon, and you see here actually 2 Calderons. The main cluster is Lope de Vega, of course, and this green nodes represent Calderon, and it's actually two clusters. The one on the left and the one is grouped together with the collaborative plays. Looking into the corpus, you see that's actually two different genres in Calderon. Okay, so I mean, there's a couple of implications here that actually worth looking into. Maybe also related to authorship attribution or genre attribution on classification. But the minimum score of text reuses actually extracted is 0.6. That is one verse. That is actually one verse between two plays. That actually not exactly. It's not one. It's not exactly one verse. It's just nearly verbatim reused. And the highest one is 1080. If you set a minimum range at 25, for example, 99% of the graph disappears. Okay, so I mean, we are left with 90 edges. It's just like 75% of the authors also disappear. So what does it mean? What does it mean that eliminating the number of reuse at this lower scale, 90% of the reuses disappear? The sum of the reuses between two words is too low. I mean, it's just normally it's just one or two verses. And as we see here in the case of Lope de Vega, the majority of his plays are gone completely. And what I want to point out here that's actually that this does not mean a qualitative assessment, because of course a parallel passage of just two verses could be really important for a critical editing. You know, could be really important to collate two plays. So that's actually what I meant with a high rank, a high extraction of text reuses. It's complicated actually. Our goal, that is to get the reuses that's actually helpful for the critical editing. So what about the joint, the collaborative plays? We see here in dark blue that that they remain there, but it means that they share a significant number of reuses. Although if you take a closer look, these reuses actually are not between other plays, as you may expect it, are not related to the models. Those reuses are related to themselves. So there is a lot of, for example, collaborative reuse between them. This aqua blue is actually the same author, but just as the unique author of the play. So this is just a representation of the share reuse between the collaborative works of this author. So yes, collaborative plays present a higher level of reuse, but are those false positives? What I mean with that, if we look at the text reuses without duplicates, of course, because we can have just one verse that's actually used by different plays. But if we look just at the actually reuses we had with a score of 1, so just verbatim scores, these are the top 15. ¿Qué es esto? Ay de mí, ay infelice de mí, arma, arma, guerra, guerra. Those are what a professor actually recently called automatizations of the writer. And can we call that reuse, or can we call that reuse in terms of literary studies? Maybe not. Maybe if they are together with a couple of them, maybe we just can qualify them as that. So again, this could be also interesting because maybe you can extract some features that are related to the genre of the collaborative writing. So, propose the last table here. Maybe, for example, one of those válgame el cielo que es esto, you can think that this could be maybe a collocation or a concurrence, and if it's the collocation, maybe you can extract them before you apply algorithms for text reuse and improve the thing. So when I saw that, I thought, okay, maybe. For válgame el cielo, I don't know. I don't want to risk saying that this is a collocation, but maybe it is. And so if it's that, I think using NLP simple tools, we can clean the text before we apply other reuse algorithms. So this is what I said when there are too much. I mean, too many reuses. It's like it's more than 200,000. So the problem is also how to not only how to analyze them, but also how to present them, how to visualize them. Because if you have in mind that you want to present that for a critical editing, someone needs to be able to handle that somehow, and it's too much. And of course, I didn't got into validating features because this is just background, but as you can imagine, multiplying the whole thing is kind of like but I see that as a complicated task. So I'm just finishing with that, with the next steps I think I need to do in order to improve this is, of course, exhaustive parameter validation, because what you saw is just kind of like a cherry picking what I thought it could be presentable. Use maybe other libraries like PASM. PASM is now strongly used in different projects, as I see. So maybe I think I have to have a look into it. Text reuse too for. It's a packaging art, which is I tried already, but it can't perform as good as, for example, Tracer, because it's for, let's say, for medium corpus, like more than 60 plays. It's like the computation time is too long. It's like, I mean, it's doable, but it's like a 3-4 days. It's just what a thing that Tracer does in a minute. So, of course, other computational approaches like paraphrase extraction, using WordNet, for example. Apparently, Tracer is able to do so. It's able to also to use parts of speech in order to extract text reuse. I didn't get into. I was talking about just verbatim or near verbatim. What about allusion? And just seeing the amount of extraction I got just with verbatim or near verbatim, I can't imagine how. I mean, I know it's doable, and I know it's it's work done in that direction, but I don't know if it's how it's going to be possible to manage all this kind of extraction. And of course, and I think this could be also interesting, put together authorship attribution and text reuse in order to get to the thing that actually literary scholars are still doing. I mean, we think, okay, now with authorship attribution, looking for parallel passages, I mean, it doesn't make sense because, of course, parallel passages, you can copy them. But I mean, still, if you go on a normal conference of critical editing editors, you see that parallel passages are still in use for also authorship attribution. So I think both together, as we know, this is not always as super easy to find who the author is. We can put both things together in order to get better results. So, and that's all that I wanted to tell you. Thank you.